Hello, welcome back to the channel. Brand new channel, lots to talk about. So today I decided that I was going to talk about my bodybuilding journey. This is something I've talked about on interviews on a couple different channels. Um, so this one's going to be like my full story. I don't know how detailed I'm going to get, but it'll probably be more detailed than what it should be because of who I am as a person. So let's start from the beginning. So my first introduction to working out or anything fitnessy was my dad. My dad was in the military and I would see him once in a while. And when I did, he would train. He would do like body weight workouts. No matter where he lived, he always had some kind of little setup going on, and he would have me do it with him. So it would be like push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, stuff like that. He also did a little bit of boxing, the punching bag and stuff like that. I saw how intense he was when he was doing these things, and like I never seen him like that before. So it kind of intrigued me, and I also just wanted to impress him. And so, I was like giving it my all too. He also was a football and wrestling coach as I was growing up, and I would go see him in the summertime, and it would be like football training, and I would come along to the practices, and I always wanted to join in on at least the workouts, not necessarily the actual sport stuff. But I would like do the sprints with him and stuff, and I just thought it was fun, and he made it fun. And same with wrestling. I would, join in on some of the training for that too. But I didn't see my dad often. So I think part of it comes from that like daddy wound, which I talked about in my previous video. Kind of missing that physical, fatherly kind of connection. And also, like I said, I wanted to impress him. And so to me, that was the perfect way to do it. He loves fitness and stuff like that, so I'm gonna get really good at that kind of thing. I also liked it too, so it wasn't all about my wounds. But yeah, so then I did sports growing up. I did like t-ball and stuff as a kid, and was always doing kind of like gymnastics around the house. And eventually I begged my mom enough where she let me do gymnastics classes. Elementary, I did a few sports. I did football and wrestling and track. I don't know why I can't think of, I have a not very great memory, but yeah, gymnastics was awesome. It was everything I thought it would be. It was very challenging. I remember my first time really feeling like sore was I had this like, she was like a mean gymnastics teacher. Like, I don't know, she was like not even the actual teacher, she was like the assistant coach or something. And there was one day where we were doing handstand holds against the wall, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like my arms were literally giving out from underneath me. And she grabbed my ankle and she was like, "You're not done yet." And she forced me to stand up there until I reached that full 2 minutes or whatever it was. And I like hated her and I was pissed. But once I stood up from that, something in me like changed, and I liked that. I liked the way she pushed me. And then the next day, I never felt so sore in my life. And that was when I became addicted to like the soreness and like getting better. And I was just like, wow, like that's what it takes to be sore, is forcing yourself past the point of what you think you can do. And I just was addicted at that point. Yeah, so high school, I did track, wrestling, gymnastics, swimming. I did them all at different times. I get bored easily, so I didn't do each of them all 4 years. But basically, I liked the training, the weight training, and the conditioning, the workouts the most. So I decided to beg my mom for a gym membership in 2012. And she had to go sign up for me and everything. This was around the same time that I was on Pinterest and saw photos of Dana Lynn Bailey, Nicole Wilkins, Juliana Malacarne. And those were all like top Olympians of the time in bodybuilding. And I never seen anything like that. You know, feminine, beautiful women who are also jacked. And I could just see myself being that. Like I could envision it. And so from that moment, I got inspired. And that's, again, when I had my mom get me a gym membership in high school. And I decided I was going to be at the Olympia one day. So I ended up going to the gym. There was a class in the mornings because I didn't really know what I was doing yet. And so I was like, I'll do a class. So I begged my mom to wake up at 4 a.m. and drive me to the class, and it was not very close. It was like 30 minutes away from our house, and then we had to go to school and work after. So shout out to my mom for, you know, taking one for the team for me. But yeah, I became obsessed with it, and I ended up going to the gym after school too. So that was my routine. I would go to the gym twice a day because I figure, you know, the more I go to the gym, the faster I will make these changes. I loved planning workouts while I was at school, not paying attention to school at all. I was always just writing workouts, and I would even write down like how to do them, and because I would just look up different workouts and put it all together, and I made myself a little split and a very in-depth training plan. Still didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew which muscles I wanted to hit and what I wanted to grow, which was everything. But I split it up in different ways. I think I also looked at bodybuilding.com, and, you know, I just tried researching whatever type of workouts I could to create my training programs. Same with food. It was like looking at healthy meals, healthy snacks on Pinterest and stuff. It was a lot easier for me to stick to the training than sticking to the food part. I struggled with that for a long time. Yeah, I ended up having a binge eating disorder. I don't know really when that started. I would probably say maybe 2014. And that continued for like seven-ish years. So I was like training hard, you know, getting really good in the gym, getting really consistent, loving it, still seeing my body change and seeing muscle develop, but still struggled with food a lot. And it kind of like controlled my life. I did have a few coaches along the way, you know, and I told them I wanted to be a bodybuilder. So they gave me a bodybuilding plan, which was very strict. And looking back, I just think that I should have tried a lifestyle diet first, because it's really difficult to go from like thinking cereal and yogurt is healthy than to just having chicken and rice, you know, measured out. Every meal is measured, you know, 5 meals a day. So it was just too dramatic of a change. And I was very hard on myself already. And I was like, wow, I'm a failure. I can't do this. I had a calendar, and I would write down, I would put an X over every day that I messed up. And at first, you know, I fucking messed up every day. And then I sabotaged myself too. You know, I later found out it was mostly a self-sabotage thing, and it was really my mind was like holding me back because I didn't believe I was good enough to have the things I wanted. And so I made sure that I never had them. You know, it's a handful of things too that I found out later, but yeah, I struggled with that for a while. I did my first show in 2017. Oh shit, we gotta reverse back to 2014. 2014 is when I graduated from high school, and when I moved to Champaign, Illinois area, and I went to this really sweet gym called the Refinery, and there was like a bodybuilding crew there, and I had a coach, and I told them what my dreams were. You know, I was like, I want to be on the Olympia stage one day for figure, and I was showing them like who I want to look like, and they're like, are you natural? And I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. And that's when, you know, they told me that if I want to be on the Olympia stage, all those girls are taking drugs. And I was like, really? So I need to start taking drugs. Like, it was like not even a question. It was like whatever I have to do. And at the time, you know, I only had these crazy kind of perceptions in my mind of like, of ladies who take drugs. And it was kind of like, manly women, obviously, like, you know, crazy side effects, like they look definitely like they're going to the other side, you know? And so I knew that was a possibility, but I also thought to myself, like, if all these feminine ladies are on drugs too, then it must be a matter of like not taking too much or being aware of side effects, is kind of what I just pieced together in my mind. And I was like, I'm very feminine right now. I don't know how that could happen quickly, so I'll just start, you know, and see what happens. I also didn't care about having kids. Excuse me. I wasn't worried about that at the time, and I didn't even want to, didn't think it was going to be in my life path. I just cared about this one thing. And so shortly thereafter, I started my first cycle, and it's hard to remember, to be honest, exactly what I was taking, but it was definitely Anavar for a long time. Like, most of my cycles for the first like 4-5 years were Anavar, and it made a big difference. It made a really big difference. Like, I was like changing so fast. I became so addicted to the progress, like, especially my shoulders. It was crazy. If you go way back on my Instagram, you'll figure it out. I think I deleted everything before that, so I was like, oh, this is it right here. Yeah, so obviously it became addicting pretty quickly, and I just wanted to keep growing and growing, and still struggling with diet, but I still tried my best. I was getting better, you know. At that point, it was like eating my meals I'm supposed to have, maybe a small snack here and there, and then maybe a cheat meal once a week, which most of my plans allowed me to have one, so it was okay. But every now and again, I would just like eat way too much fucking peanut butter or something, and like to the point where it's like binging. Like, it's not okay. Like a ridiculous amount of peanut butter or something. So yeah, I battled with that. Still was growing. Decided to compete in 2017, but I actually decided to compete way before that. So I would say, oh, I'm going to do the show in 3 months. And then I would sabotage myself and binge eat to the point where I wasn't making any changes, wasn't getting leaner. And then I'd say, oh, I'm just going to do a different show. So I would push back and do a different show, different show, different show. And just never got to the show because I never actually stuck with it when it got really hard, when the diet started, you know, starving you. And when it would have actually started working, I wasn't strong enough mentally at that point to do that. So yeah, to 2017, I did pretty well in my prep. I actually did drop quite a bit of weight. But I definitely wasn't actually show ready like you're supposed to be. But I was leaner than I'd ever been. I could see some lines, you know. And I did binge eat like 1 or 2 weeks out. It was self-sabotage 100%. It's like, the one thing you can't do right now is binge eat. Okay, I'm gonna do it. And I was crying, like, I didn't want to do the show anymore because I messed up and I knew I wasn't gonna be as good as I was. But something in me just knew I had to just do it, just get it over with. It was just a regional show. So, but back then I didn't even know what that really meant. I just knew, like, to me that was a big deal. But I just knew I had to do it. And so I did that show. There was 5 women's physique competitors. I thought I was women's physique, or maybe I just wanted to do the routine. I really liked the idea of the routine. And I was just like, I just want to do women's physique. Let's see how it goes. I felt like I grew out of figure, but I really didn't. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I had a hip injury. I had a torn labrum during that prep. And so I was doing 2 hours a day of cardio with a torn labrum, and it hurt to even sit down. I knew I had to get surgery after. Pretty brutal dealing with that too. And then of course, surgery, and I wasn't able to train the way I wanted. I will say I still went to the gym as fast as I could, like 3 days after on crutches. I was in there doing upper body. And then it was like a week or so that I could get on the bike and start biking again, like burning calories. And I also, like, to preserve my leg muscle, I would just like squeeze and hold them like several times a day because I was like way too worried about losing muscle. But yeah, it kind of affected my mindset just to not be able to train the way I wanted to for so long. And I binge ate like the worst I ever had in my entire life at that point. Oh man, you guys would be impressed at the amount of food that I could put down at that time. But it really controlled my life, you know? And then I went through a phase where I started trying different diets. I'm like, maybe that's just not for me. The bodybuilding life is not for me. And I like basically talked myself out of it and decided I wasn't good enough and kind of put it on pause for a bit. I was still training because I love training, and I just continued to do that. But I tried a whole bunch of different diets. So, and all of them I tried for at least 3 months, an adequate amount of time to know if it works or not. I tried keto. Honestly, I tried so many different ones. I tried whole foods. And I can only think of 2. Well, the main one is veganism. I ended up going vegan. I'll pause for a second on that note because I also was having chronic fatigue and migraines for years. And I was starting to like actually realize that it's a problem, not normal for like a young person to feel so tired. And so that's another reason why I was trying all these different diets too. I was like, I really got to get a hold of this binge eating thing, and I really need to try and see which diet is going to help me feel better. And so I tried, of course, a whole bunch of different ones. And then I also was like kind of looking into veganism at the same time because there's so much research on it helping with so many different things. I watched a video called Earthlings, and it's a documentary about the way that humans use animals. And I was like crying so hard I couldn't breathe. And that night that I watched it, immediately I turned vegan, and I couldn't imagine eating anything else with animal products in it. I was vegan for 3.5 years, and I was a strict vegan. I did not eat anything with gelatin. I didn't have a leather purse. And then I also started to like be better about cycling and things like that too. Because to me, like, if you're gonna go all in, then you gotta go all in. You can't still wear a leather bag and stuff like that. Anyway, so when I turned vegan, it changed the way I looked at food, and I actually stopped binge eating completely when I turned vegan because it was just such a greater purpose to the food that I ate. And I was so aware of what I was putting in my mouth, which also helped in the future with bodybuilding again, because also with dieting, you'll get people around you who will like make fun of you kind of because they're jealous that they don't have the discipline, and they'll be like, oh, you're gonna go eat your chicken and rice again, or like they try to get you to eat just one bite at a family gathering or whatever, try to make you feel bad and like not really supportive, you know? And so when I went vegan, it was perfect because everyone hates vegans, and I was doing something that everyone didn't agree with. And, you know, at the dinner table, it was me with my special food I brought for myself, and them making comments and me just like not caring because this is what I'm doing for me. So that ended up helping in bodybuilding too in the future. Like I totally just block out what anyone thinks about any of that. That also helped me with not caring what people think, but it took a long time. If you watch my other video, I cared too much for a long time. Anyway, yeah, so I did not compete for that whole time, and I came off drugs for that whole time. Still trained though. At first, I didn't know how to eat enough protein and the right nutrients on a vegan diet. It was a learning process, you know, because if you look at how we're taught to eat, it's very much meat focused. And then you got the sides, which are the veggies and the carbs or whatever. So, you know, learning how to eat as a vegan alone was hard enough, and now I'm trying to eat and trying to still be a bodybuilder. So I did actually decide I wanted to try to do a show again. I didn't pick a show, but I just started eating healthier, eating high protein as a vegan, eating meals, like 5 meals a day, and I was like doing the whole vegan bodybuilding thing. And then I eventually got a coach, and I was like, I'm vegan, so we're gonna have to work around that. And we ended up deciding we were gonna do a show in 2020. Was it 2021? 2021 makes more sense, I think. Yes, so I was vegan for that whole prep until the last 2 weeks. And the reason is because I was bloated from the processed proteins, because you can't have protein without carbs or fats when you're a vegan, really, unless it's processed, unless it's seitan, which is like those mock meats. And they do have just as much, maybe even more protein as animal proteins, but it's like a flour that gets like boiled. And so hard for your body to digest, basically. It's processed. And I figured that out, and I couldn't go on stage bloated, and so I switched to pescatarian, and I added fish for that last 2 weeks. And I got pretty lean for that one. That was like my comeback. That was a big deal for me. That might have been like the hardest prep I've ever done, just because it was like getting back into everything. But it was huge, huge, huge for my mindset, because it was something that I had given up on myself, really. But I couldn't stop thinking about bodybuilding. I would see posts about it, and I was like unfollowing people just to ignore it. But it would still come up once in a while, and I just had this big feeling of like, I'm missing out. And also I just couldn't stop thinking about it anyway. So I knew I had to get back on stage again. I only messed up once or twice during that whole prep, and it was peanut butter for one of them, I think. And then I had like 3 protein bars at once. I don't know why I'm sharing this with you. I just think it's interesting to see like the things that we mess up on. But for me, that was way better than before, because before I was obviously binge eating like full on meals. Pizza, ice cream, cookie dough, like it was insane. I still was pretty lean, and I decided to compete there at the Grand Rapids show. I'm from Michigan. Was the only one in my height class. Yeah. So I won, obviously, because I was the only one. And then for the top, like overall, this other girl beat me. And I did figure for that show. And then they told me that I should have done physique. So I was just trying to figure out, you know, where do I belong for like fucking forever. And then that one like lit me up. It lit a spark in me, and I was like, I'm gonna do a national show. Apparently I thought I was hot shit. And I was like, I'm gonna do women's physique at North Americans in 2022. So I only had like 3 months of an off season before I started prep, which I think my prep that time was like 6 months. So for that 3 months in between, I did powerlifting. My ex did powerlifting. He taught me, you know, I was training with him, and he was like teaching me how to do it. And so I was like, I'm gonna do a competition, see how I do. And I ended up winning, so that was cool. There were some badass lifters there too. I was like, I'm definitely not gonna win, but I got lucky. And I did, you know, I was pretty strong. I put in work, so. But then I started my prep for North Americans, and oh my God. I got so lean, but like, I was over dieted that time. So I was stringy and small. I lost some size. That was a rough prep. Maybe that one was the hardest. Fuck, I don't know. They're all hard. But I ended up placing 8th out of like, who knows, like 20 girls or something. It's hard to remember. But 8th wasn't doing it for me. I felt so confused after I stepped off stage. To me, that was like a massive stage. I was like freaking myself out about it. I didn't get to do my routine because only top 5 get to do their routine. And it was just like devastating, you know? I got sent some messages of some of the girls I'd be competing against. And I was like, holy fuck, like they definitely look bigger than me and leaner. You know, so I kind of got in my head already about it, but I look crazier than I've ever looked, you know? So I'm still like, let's see how we do. Either way, I'll still look, you know, better than I've ever looked before, so that's good for me. But yeah, 8th place didn't sit well with me. After that show, I pretty much had to figure out, did I enjoy that? Do I want to do it again? Do I want to continue? But most of me just felt like this fire and this anger of like, I know I can do better than that. And I'm not going to give up on myself again. I'm not going to try and tell myself I'm not made for this. I'm not going to get in my head. I'm just going to get to work. And so that's exactly what I did. I immediately started training again. I switched to a different coach who was, my old coach was powerlifting and bodybuilding coach. And because I wanted to focus on doing 2 different types of sports. But then after that show, I decided all I want to do is bodybuilding. I want to put all my energy into that one thing. And so over the course of the next 3 years, 2022 to 2025, I just did my best at bodybuilding. There were times where I thought about quitting still, and those came up for a few different reasons. There is a lot of sacrifice in the sport. It takes away from a lot of your life. It can take away from your life. It's definitely not normal. It's hard to like let loose and relax when everything has to be planned and there's always work to be done every day. That wasn't the thing that I cared about really, because I like that structure, and it, you know, my life got kind of crazy in that 3 years, as an understatement. And it kind of held me together and gave me like something that will always make me better. The energy you put in always comes back to you. Like, it's very rewarding, and it's a very honest sport, which I love because there's not much that's honest like that these days. You don't always get out what you put in to everything. And to me, that's like, that's the most worthy of your time, is to put your time into something that gives back to you. You look at my last video of like healing, learning to love myself. That's kind of, I kind of had a whole shift of the way I see life and see the world. It made me question bodybuilding too. It made me question if I was doing it for the right reasons, because I realized I was looking at life through this victim mentality and through this lens of what do others think kind of thing, and trying to like prove myself. And so I really had to get into my head and ask myself, am I doing this for validation? Am I doing this for other people? Am I doing this to try and earn some type of attention, or like what is the real purpose of it? And I really did some deep diving, and I found that some of my reasoning was not authentic to my new true self. There were some people who I did want their validation. I did want their approval. And I thought being really good at this one thing would maybe get it. I also found that I've always been drawn to muscle and thought it was beautiful. And I knew I was drawn to the discipline and the hard work and the way that you change mentally and also physically, of course. And who doesn't want to look like a fucking goddess? There was some reasoning that was true to myself that was still valid. While I did take some short breaks from diet, and these are really small breaks because I still was like, if I want this goal, I mean, I can't fuck up too much. But there was a time where I was like, maybe I'll just go to the store and get whatever I feel like eating. And it was like all healthy food. It was like fruit mostly. I just wanted a whole bunch of fucking fruit. And that was the time where I ate like so much watermelon and pineapple, mostly watermelon. It was a fucking really random time for me. After like a week of eating pretty much my bodybuilding diet plus a whole bunch of watermelon, I was like, no, I want to do this. And I want to do it for me. I realized that I wanted my pro card for me. It would be signifying me not giving up on myself all the times I've wanted to, which, you know, you heard that I did talk myself out of bodybuilding before, and I almost did it again. And it was like just keeping a promise to myself. And I wanted something to show for all the work I had put in, something physical. And at that point, I only had a 5th place trophy because there was only 5 girls at the show, and that was embarrassing. I didn't even want to show anybody that. Not that it's about anybody else, but I didn't look at that trophy like, you did that, girl. I was like, yeah, 5 people. I was the 5th one. Anyway, I wanted something to show for it before I said goodbye. So I was like, I'm gonna get my pro card. And I'm gonna get it at the same show that I placed 8th at, North Americans, however long it takes to be big enough, to be lean enough, to be ready. And so after working towards this thing for 3 years, in order to qualify for North Americans, I had to do Lila Brada Championships, which is near Houston, and I ended up taking overall in that show, which was amazing. That was my first time feeling what it feels like to be in the center and win. Kind of a crazy feeling, but I also like already knew that I was gonna win that show. Like I already had it in my head, and I already like felt it in my soul that that one was mine. I have to win overall in order to go to North Americans, otherwise I'm not ready. And so I'm so glad that that happened, so I could feel confident going into North Americans. Of course, just 3 weeks later, or was it 4 weeks later, was North Americans. And whew, that came up quickly. Also slowly at the same time, because, you know, each day is fucking miserable. I also moved to Houston during that time. Right after Lila Brada, I moved that week after. So it was kind of stressful, it was kind of a lot. And, you know, people warned me, like, do not move during your prep. And I was like, yeah, right, I'll be fine. Which I made it through it, but I did mess up on my diet during the moving process. And that didn't sit well mentally. I did not feel as confident going in. I started doubting myself a lot when that happened. And then the weeks after, I started doubting myself because I knew I messed up and I knew I wasn't as good as I could be. I had a good support team, and they were hyping me up and helping me see the things I couldn't see at the time. I still thought there was a chance I could win it. And I had been envisioning winning my pro card for the past 3 years. Like I had straight up manifested this shit. I had said it a million times and knew IFBB Pro, Emily Nosler. You know, you say that shit to yourself and you manifest it and you make that shit happen. And holy fuck, I can't even believe it. I got my pro card. Yeah. So that's how I became a professional bodybuilder. There's been a lot of trials and tribulations on the way. It's been a long, long journey. At some point, I stopped worrying about Olympia and just started worrying about what's in front of me, the next task in front of me, getting this pro card, and now I have it. And I'm like, what do I want now? So I need to do some more deep diving into my soul and see if it still aligns with me. And if I did continue to do bodybuilding, it would just only be because of my passion for it and my love for it. And it would be for no other reason than that. I didn't really mention the drug aspect from when I got back into bodybuilding in 2020 to 2025. I tried different drugs. So this was when NPP and Primo got introduced. Size cycles, I would say, definitely way more than I've ever taken, and it increased. Started getting some more side effects. Maybe I'll make a separate video on side effects. But like it just happened slowly over time. I got side effects from Anavar early on, and then of course I got side effects from NPP, probably the most. That had the most side effects, and Primo was pretty good. Very limited side effects. For this last show, a Masteron was added, Proviron, and I got more side effects, of course. You know, you take more, you take stronger stuff, you take several things all together. Anavar was also in this last one too. And of course, you know, the general fat loss stuff, the estrogen blockers and things like that. Side effects happen. It's part of it. That's a big reason why I struggle to want to continue. If I'm, you know, completely honest, it's not something I'm willing to risk all of my femininity for. I have already lost some. I've already, you know, I have masculine side effects, and I don't want more. And I don't think it's worth it for a trophy and to have my body look a way that I'm not even sure I want to look like. Because when I started, I was looking at Juliana Malacarne, Nicole Wilkins, Dana Lynn Bailey. If you look at those pictures, I mean, they look way different than the ladies on the Olympia stage now. So the goalpost keeps moving and everything keeps getting bigger and crazier. And some girls can keep their femininity, but it's a very, very, very small amount. The bigger the category, you know, the more masculine, and no hate on them. I actually respect them a lot for sacrificing so much for something that they love. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But for me, it's just not worth it to me. And part of me wishes it was, because I do think I have a lot of potential in the sport. And I do think I could go to the Olympia if I decided it was worth that risk. But right now, I just don't know. I'm continuing to do everything as if I was going to do a pro debut at this moment. I'm about a month post show. I do often think about if I even want to, and if I even want my body to look like a pro women's physique. Obviously I am pro, but to actually compete with pros is a whole different situation. And they are so much denser and bigger and leaner than I was at my show. And I'm just trying to figure out if I even want that look. If I want to look like that, will I still feel sexy? Is it worth possibly losing more femininity? And I just can't decide. So right now I'm undecided, and I am leaning more into this more spirituality, meditation, like in touch with myself. And it's really hard for me to align with hormone manipulation for such a surface level thing. And so it's becoming more of an alignment issue too. Is this truly aligned with my soul and what I actually want? Or is it still that little hurt girl that's just trying to prove herself? Just trying to build this big, strong body so I can protect my little soft heart. You know, what is the deal with it? Is it authentic? Is it because I really just love bodybuilding that much? Still more soul searching needs to be done to really get the true answer to what do I do next. But I will tell you that right now I'm trying to build glutes the size of Texas, and that is to make my damn self happy when I look in the mirror and I got these big, juicy glutes. So that's my main focus right now. I am still doing upper body and stuff, but it's more of a focus on shoulders and back a little bit. Not as worried about everything else. So part of me thinks I might just try to go towards my dream body of what I think is sexy, which happens to be pretty muscular. And I just have to figure out how to do that on no gear or very small amounts so that I don't get any more side effects. So there's really no true answer. There's time to decide, but I'm just gonna continue doing what I'm doing, training hard, following my diet, which actually that's another thing I could talk about, is how hard it is to stay on diet after a show. And maybe that's not everybody, but I haven't competed. You know, it was 3 years in between. It's just something that you can get used to post-show, knowing what not to do and what you can let yourself get away with. But yeah, I've been struggling. Just straight up honest with you. It's been hard to stick to my plan, so. But I've gotten better each week, and that's all I can really ask for right now, is just to slowly get better until my body's not in survival mode and my hormones are leveled out a little bit, because going from such a crazy cycle to nothing, well, just TRT. You know, my hormones are whack, and my brain was like, feed me for like 6 months, and then finally I was eating and it was like, don't stop. My brain was like, yeah, keep doing that. That's great, we like that. Hopefully I didn't forget any vital aspects of my journey. If you listen to this whole freaking thing, oh my gosh, you're a true fan and I love you. Thanks for being here and caring about my story. I hope that, you know, you get something out of this for yourself, and that it can be inspiring or can teach you something. It's one of those things, it's like a niche. Some people have never even, don't even know anything about bodybuilding, don't know what it is at all. So hopefully this maybe taught you something too. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.